cannot stand it is hypothetical situations. I mean, there are people who will say, Colin, if that was a white person doing this, or instead of a black person, then the newspapers would have splashed it on the front page, or at least buried it in the classified section, whatever the thing is. We don't have to use hypotheticals because we have so many facts. We have so many facts and examples of black on white crime, black mob violence, black criminality, and black on white hostility. So let's talk about black on white hostility for a minute. When we talk about that, we don't have to say hypothetically or even anecdotally. We don't have to say, well, I was down at the grocery store today and the black woman at the grocery counter gave me a dirty look, or she ignored me. No. Black on white hostility is now mainstream. And we see it every day. We see it every day on MSNBC, CNN, all the major networks, lots and lots of radio shows, TV shows. I mean, why don't we look at something that actually got a lot of attention this week from the Huffington Post, the little blog entry called, "Could it be time to deny white men the franchise?" Well, when I first saw this, I thought it was kind of a joke or a satire. I mean, you remember the very famous example of this was Jonathan Swift. He wrote a story called A Modest Proposal. He was talking about how to solve the hunger problem in Ireland. And the modest proposal was everybody should go out and eat Irish babies. So when this woman comes in and says, let's deny white men the right to vote, I thought, okay, maybe there's some kind of unbelievably clever thing here that I'm not unbelievably interested in reading. No, that was it. She said white men are screwing up the vote they keep voting for conservatives, not progressives. They're getting in the way of our ultimate goal of worldwide wealth distribution in South Africa and around the world. So we just got to get rid of the vote. Stop them from voting. This is the Huffington Post, okay? This isn't some dude in his basement with his, yelling up to his mom every 5 minutes, "Hey mom, can I have some more Hot Pockets?" No, this is a major media organization, hundreds and hundreds of employees, owned by a bigger media organization. So, that's what this is. This is a good example of black on white hostility that has now gone mainstream, however ridiculous it might be. You need another one? This week? Okay, why don't we go down to Houston? This guy, Anthony Bourdain, I think he's kind of famous. So many famous people that I've never heard of. So I know that this guy, I recognize him as being a famous person. Maybe he travels around sampling local culture, local food, local customs, and he comes back and tries to convince all of us about what we're missing by not living in a hut on the plains of Africa with a thatched roof and drinking cow's blood, that kind of thing. Anyway, so he's taking his road show to Houston, and they're going to do some kind of show on food in Houston. The word went out, no white people will be allowed on this show. Yes, I know he's white. But here's the drill with people like Anthony Bourdain. He basically believes every human being, every white person on the planet, except for him, is white. So he has to undo the wrong all the rest of us are doing. But here's my favorite example of black and white hostility that we see in the press. Now, a lot of people are really curious about this whole idea of why are they seem, especially when they're covering black stories, it's like, why are there so many black reporters covering stories about black people? Well, this kind of gives us a hint of what's going on. This is about the National Association of Black Journalists. They're launching a new project called the Black Male Media Project to inspire black men. And the goal of the project is to change the images of black men in the news media and society. It is a nationwide effort to open doors and change the narrative of black men. So this, and so this is just a good example when we see this hostility, black on white hostility, when we see this unbelievable level of racial consciousness, and by the way, the flip side of racial consciousness is racial hostility. Here we see the National Association of Black Journalists is encouraging its members to change the narrative of black men, i.e., start reporting something other than the news. So if you see 300 people, 800 people, like last night, there was a ton of stuff happening last night. 300 people in Chicago rampaging at a carnival. 800 people, same thing, down in Birmingham. Both times they sent black reporters out. Both times the reporters looked in the camera like, what? Nothing really happened here. Then the people in the comment section are going, to their credits, at least some stations left the comment section up. So the comments are going, what the hell's going on? I mean, what is it? Why are so many black people rampaging through the area and, going crazy? Man, in the last 24 hours, we've probably done 3 or 4 videos, just stuff in the last 24 hours. I'm making this on a Sunday, and it's amazing. Every single one, they're just trying to minimize, deny, ignore, excuse, condone, encourage, even lie about this level of black criminality. And nobody's hiding it. Okay. So the National Association of Black Journalists, they put these seminars on. This is just one of them. They put them on all over the country, all their chapters. Society of Professional Journalists does the exact same thing. They put all these seminars on about how to cover black crime. The national magazine of the Society of Professional Journalists, published out of Indianapolis, by the way. It's called The Quill. I used to get The Quill because I used to win a lot of awards from the Society of Professional Journalists when I entered them. Anyway, they had a big story about Thomas Sowell wrote a column about one of my books. And basically his column was, listen, Colin Flaherty's exposing all this stuff, and you mean to tell me this is something we shouldn't write about? So the Society of Professional Journalists took up the challenge, wrote this long thumb-sucking piece in response to Sowell's column, and the answer was, no, we shouldn't cover it. That's what they said. And then they got in touch with me and they said, hey, Colin, because they got in touch with me and I said, listen, you guys are a joke. Okay, you're a joke. I mean, you don't cover it and you're trying to hide this. Okay, Colin, why don't, it's kind of like what you would tell a 6th grader, right? Why don't you write something about your objections to our magazine? And I said, sure. Boom, boom. Wrote something. Hour later, boom, popped it in. They never used it, never acknowledged it. Done. That's the Society of Professional Journalists. Oh, by the way, this may have changed in the last year since the last time I wrote about it and checked on it, but the same group that is telling us to hire black people, to ignore black crime, and to do all this other racially conscious stuff directed at black people, check their board of directors and staff. See if you see any black people on there. Last I checked, there was 0. Okay, but the big question is, okay, why are people so aggressive about this? Why are stations so aggressive about this? And we did a video on this a year or so ago. I would have put this back in here, but I can't find the thing, so we'll just kind of recap it now. So the big reason that stations are really aggressive on hiring black reporters and black producers, well, there's 1 or 2 reasons. 1, relentless white racism and they're trying to make up for lost time. Or 2, there's some kind of legal thing going on that really forces them to be a lot more aggressive with their affirmative action hiring. That's number 2. That's the correct answer. And again, this is not hypothetical. This is not something that we're speculating on. This is something that's very easy to see. So why don't we just kind of start off by... I had this Huffington Post article up. Why don't we just say we'll just look for anyone in general. Why don't we just look for the NBC affiliate in Washington, D.C. And we're going to find, what we're going to do is we're going to look at these files that the station keeps, that they have to keep because of FCC law about how they hire and retain and find black people to work in their stations. I'll tell you what, before we even get into that, let's talk about the why part. The why part is these TV stations, these big media conglomerates, they're constantly buying and selling each other or parts of themselves. So if you own a lot of TV stations, you're company A and you own 25 stations, and you want to buy company B that owns 25 stations, when you take your little application into the FCC for approval, one of the first things they're going to look at is your equal opportunity file. Now, this so-called public file, you can walk into any TV station in America and say, I want to see your public file. And they'll know exactly what you're talking about. And they're going to give you a file with tons and tons of stuff in it. So we're at the NBC website here in Washington, D.C. This stuff's usually scrolled down to the bottom somewhere. Let's see what we got. Here we go. See that down there? Public inspection file. Click on that. Anytime now. Okay, this took us to an FC. So this took us to an FCC site, the Federal Communications Commission site. It talks about all the different kind of sites that the reasons why they have to have public inspection files. Not exactly what I was looking for, though. Let's look for the WRC public inspection file. Didn't we just look at that? Yes. Here we go. FCC News and Information Programming Report. Let's see what that one says. Okay, here's one. It came from WRC-TV. I'm not sure if that's Washington or not. But anyway, this is called the Annual Public File EEO Report, Equal Opportunity Report. And this is for WRC-TV. So it just kind of goes down. This is NBC Washington. And talks about all the jobs. And you can see it just basically says, we got to find jobs for minority people here, and we're going to document that. So let's just go down. Here's all the some of the jobs. And so for each vacancy listed, attached to this report, the relevant and completed recruitment source data form. How many interviews did the station interview for these job vacancies? How many interviewed were referred to the station from each of the recruitment sources? So you go down the next one, you see, okay, well, where are they getting recruitment sources? The American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, fair enough. Different colleges, different universities, Howard University, the Washington Urban League. What else we got? We have lots of other. And the National Lesbian and Gay Journalists Association. Women's groups. Let me see. The National Association of Black. There it is. National Association of Black Journalists is on here. Parents and friends of ex-gays. What the hell is that? I don't know. This kind of summarizes the station, who went to these different hiring shows, hiring trade shows, how they participated in this and that, roundtables, things like that. Intern program. Here's a program they participated in. The Emma Bowen Foundation for Minority Interests in the Media. Lots of grants, job banks. And this is just one example. Human Resources Manager. Redress of here's all the people that are sending people over to this TV station. National Lesbian and Gay Journalists Association. Cool. Oh man. Isn't it kind of, I mean, all right, you know what? This is what it is. Doesn't really do us any good to sit here and make all these judgments on it, because we just have to sit here and look at it and see what it is, to see how the people who run these TV stations, how they think about this. How they think about this is not going to be any different than how they think about their news stories. Content producer, National Association of Black Journalists is sending people over to talk about that. So that's the pressure. And so that's the pressure that the stations are under. That if the FCC does not like the condition of your public file report, if you're not recruiting minority journalists, if you have a lot of complaints in your file about the way you cover minority, black affairs, Asian affairs, whatever, that could delay the approval of this merger. It could delay your ability to buy a station, sell a station. Listen, the suits upstairs, they don't want that. I mean, I know a lot of guys in positions to buy and sell stations. And most of them, by the way, are surprisingly like uber liberal. I mean, they're sitting there making all these complicated business deals, but when it comes down to it, they say, no, Colin, we think the 1% should lose all their money. Yeah, they say stuff like that. Anyway, but some of these guys are very accomplished, and they, and so whatever their ideological leanings are, they want that file in shape so it doesn't screw up their deals. Companies have lost, especially radio stations. They're kind of tough on radio stations. Radio stations have lost their licenses for not keeping this file in shape, lost their licenses for not jumping through hoops to attract more black people. And so, I mean, it's amazing how many facets this whole thing has, right? We see the coverage on TV. Now we know a little bit more about why the coverage looks the way it does. I mean, so you have a black person on TV. The reason that black person is there, and maybe that's the best reporter in the world. We'll never know. But because we know these TV stations are literally almost forced to do affirmative actions and racial quotas in their hiring. But we do know this: when black reporters are out there on the scene reporting black crimes, like last night, the crime in Chicago, 300 black people rampaging through a carnival, rampaging through stores, causing all sorts of havoc, mayhem, violence, property damage. We saw a black reporter look in the camera and go, well, we don't really know what happened out here. Well, hell, I knew, and I'm 1,000 miles away. But I probably have an unfair advantage because I don't care about making the black kids angry.